Welcome everyone to our webinar on using Vaadin Copilot and Figma MCP to create stunning views directly from Figma design to Vaadin UIs. My name is Mika Andersson, and today I'm with Juuso Kantonen, our UX designer. And without further ado, let's get into it. But just a brief comment on the practicalities. You have a possibility to ask questions during this session. We try to address most of the questions during the presentation, but in case there are some leftovers we weren't able to cover during the user's presentation, we'll take those in the end of the session. But yeah, let's kick it off. Juuso, are you ready?
Yes, excited to see what we've been cooking with the Figma import and the two different ways of like importing Figma designs.
Yeah, I
Yep.
mean it's pretty exciting. We've seen some major advancements in this area for the past few years, and especially in the recent years, it's been just amazing how fast things have been progressing. Like these are things that we are talking about today, which one could just dream about like a couple of years ago. So super excited about this topic.
Yep. Maybe before we jump into code, few words about myself. So as Mika mentioned, Juuso Kantonen is my name. I'm a UX designer. We have a small UX team of consultants at Vaadin, helping our customers with anything UI UX related. Now the latest thing is of course all of these AI coding, AI powered applications, and dipping our toes into that field as well. But yeah, the idea is to go through the Vaadin Copilot way of importing Figma designs, and then look into the Figma MCP workflow.
Sounds really good. Let's hit it.
Yep.
And this is going to be super practical hands-on session, so no slides, just the IDE, some crazy prompting, and hoping for the best that we'll get some fancy results.
Yes, that it doesn't all fall down with the wipe coding. So the idea is that I have prepared a Figma design that we would be generating. It looks like this. We have a header, we have tabs, then some custom elements like representing cards or key point indicators, some buttons, and a tree grid. And then there's a kind of more advanced step to that, turning this into a master detail layout where selecting an item from the grid row opens up a side panel containing a form. So to get started with this, what I've prepared is a very simple Hello World application. There's nothing else in the app. And let's first look into the Vaadin Copilot way of implementing the design. So in the application Java, I can start debugging the application using the hot-swap agent. And that's the most convenient way of running the Vaadin application when using the Vaadin Copilot. So now it should be booting up. Here's our beautiful application, and clicking say hello shows a notification. So this is our starting point, nothing too advanced here. And the way to enable the Vaadin Copilot is by clicking on the small Vaadin icon at the bottom right corner of the application, and then you see these rainbow color magic drawers appear on all the sides. There's lots of different functionality in the Vaadin Copilot that I won't be going through. The main focus for us is to look into the Visivic editing. functionalities. So here we see a DOM structure with the text field and a button. Maybe I can make this a little bit bigger. Text field and a button. And now what the Vaadin Copilot allows us to do is go into Figma. And now I'm copying a suitable part of the design. So I'm on purpose leaving out the main navigation and just copying the view contents containing a header, tabs, and then these elements. And I'm using the Figma now in dev mode, but it's perfectly possible to do the same in the design mode or just by being able to access the Figma file. And what I'm doing here is I'm copying the design. So now how Figma works is that I could copy and paste these design assets between Figma files. So everything that we need to draw this UI is now on the clipboard. And how Vaadin Copilot is working is that we make use of that. So now I'm in the vertical layout in here, and now I can do a paste in here. Now it's gonna take a while, and now it generated a corresponding structure. Put these side by side so we can easier compare the two. So the structure remains the same. Not everything is exactly as it was in the original design. For example, the styling is now base like uncustomized Luma styling. Some of the padding, some of the spacings are a little bit off, but you get the idea that most of the elements are initiated in the view, which is quite helpful. Then we have the controls for controlling the different properties. So now in the vertical layout, we can, for example, disable the padding around this. We can disable the spacing, hopefully, yes. From this one, disable the padding. So there's specific editing tools. We can control basically whatever we can do in Java through these properties panels.
So the Copilot is running on top of your running application in the browser. And when you're making these changes to your application live, those will be reflected in the code.
Exactly. So here we can also make changes to the code, and it will be immediately reflected back to my live application. So I'm not like, there is no transformation step that I'm sending the data from the front end to the code or anything like that, but it's updated real time.
Nice.
Real time. Also from here, I can go into any specific element in here and open that corresponding thing in the code. Now I went into layout. Here's, for example, my heading text. No, it's just a static text, but I could modify the value here, save it, go back to my application. It's changed here. And vice versa. I can double click the value here, change it back to whatever I want, and the changes will be reflected to code.
Really nice. So it's fully bidirectional.
Yes, indeed. That's the idea. Now maybe we can get rid of the Hello World applications part. So I can go. I'm kind of favoring the outline tree to see exactly which item am I selecting, what am I focusing, and I could, for example, delete this one from the DOM tree, and we can see the changes immediately in there.
Cool. So that's like in your dev tools, the DOM tree view, but on steroids.
Yes, and it becomes handy when you have like a lot of nested layers that the structures are getting deeper and deeper. Basically, you can do the same here by pointing and clicking, but sometimes I guess it's a personal preference on what you're used to when selecting different elements. Another thing that we can do, kind of preparing for this, how I would build it here, because I don't think we have the master detail layout, which is a new layout component in Vaadin, yet supported in Vaadin Copilot. I'm just gonna kind of mimic that by wrapping, let's see, tabs, this would do, wrapping this into a horizontal layout. And now inside this horizontal layout, we could copy this structure. So the detail contains the, again, header, tabs, and then this big form. So I'm going here, copy. Now I can again use my outline if I want. And now inside the horizontal layout, I want to paste in that layout. And there it goes. Now, of course, because it's based on the Figma layout, the sizing is off in a sense that I need to have some kind of size defined for my elements in Figma, and now it's respecting those. So, for example, here I guess I have 640 pixels as the size of this element, and that comes through here. We can see some layouts needing adjustment, which we can then continue improving by using the Vaadin Copilot. So here probably we would need to enable the wrapping to get this on different lines. Then we can do a full size on the header and so on to disable the paddings on this element. Yeah, vertical layout. And now we're already getting pretty close. Okay, there was a delay in that.
And a quick reminder for a really, really good Vaadin Copilot experience, as we can see that there is the pop-up showing that the changes are hot deployed. So when making these changes to actually get the changes back to the browser, you need to have the hot deployment enabled, right?
Yes, that's the thing that I triggered here, the swap hot swap agent. This was a thing for myself for the first time to figure out where is this button. Now, if I was running the project again, it would appear here. Now I'm using VS Code, but the other IDEs have a similar concept of debugging with this hot swap agent.
Yeah, and if unsure, check the Vaadin documentation. It's all documented in there.
Yeah. But yeah, now I'm simply don't need to like write any code, but rather I'm just like using the visual tool to modify the UI. And now we're getting like pretty close to our goal. The styling part is maybe something I could also show, and that differs a bit from the like a AI workflow. So now here in this file, how I've defined or how I've created this is that I've started with the Vaadin design system. So in the Figma, they have their own marketplace or community place to share Figma files. And in here, you can search for Vaadin and find the Vaadin design system, and you can make your own copy of this file.
So, Juuso, do you have to use Vaadin design system to work?
This is not something specific to the Vaadin Copilot. So in this workflow, yes, it is built on top of the Vaadin design system. So you get all the definitions for the components for the Vaadin components from that file. These components don't need to be in the same file, but for simplicity, now I have all the variable color variable definitions, all the components inside the same file. You could also take the Vaadin design system, customize that, make it your own, and in Figma you would publish it in your team space, and you could use it across multiple different Figma files.
Cool. So you can actually use these for your custom components as well.
Yes. Yeah. And it works in that workflow. Now I just have everything in one single file for the simplicity. In here, the styling is based on third-party plugins. So I'm using this plugin called Export Variables, CSS, SAS, Tailwind. Very interesting, great name for a plugin, very descriptive what it does. It exports CSS variables. So in the Figma terminology, variables are these kind of things. You can store color values, or you can store different size variables in these. In the Vaadin design system, there's two collections. There's one for just colors, so we can switch between the light and dark mode, for example, and then one collection for the sizes, so we can switch between the normal and compact sizing. So what the plugin does is that it takes these and exports or gives you CSS from these or based on those variables. So now I'm running the plugin, changing the output. I prefer HSLA format. Copy these. Now I'm going back to my IDE, opening up the styles, pasting in here. Let's do both work, but I just prefer HTML. There's something now broken with the syntax of these accent colors. They are not in the Luma design system originally. I guess here it is the percentage sign that isn't supported. And now the rest of it should be fine. So now I'm saving these in the styles CSS file, and it's immediately loaded. Just disable the Vaadin Copilot, and now we can see that the tab colors changed. Now the background shade here is more green. It's more aligned with the original styling of the designs. We lost a border here, it seems, but that's another property that you can configure to show the border.
So regarding the plugin, is it an additional thing to get, or how to get the variables exported?
Yes. So that is a third-party plugin, not developed by Vaadin, but there's a number of these different CSS exporters, and this is one that I've found being like a good match for ours. That it is able to use the syntax and like a alias for those variables in a format that is close to what Luma is expecting.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, I think that's everything for the Vaadin Copilot workflow, and then next we could look into the AI or the Figma MCP version of the same.
Ooh, exciting! So now we are getting into more vibe coding type of stuff. Awesome.
I'd say let's revert all of these, so we're sure that it's not reusing what we just did there. Now let's see our project. No, didn't do it right. Maybe I need to restart the application just to make sure we're back to square one. Yes. So the Figma MCP. On the Figma side, I'm using the desktop application, the desktop client of Figma. It is also functional on the browser if you're running Figma inside the browser. On the desktop version, it's maybe slightly more convenient in a way that the MCP server is running locally on my machine. On the browser version, you would select a part of a design and then generate a link that is pointing into that, and it would fetch the same structure through that link. I haven't actually personally tried the browser version, but Figma's documentation claims that everything is working exactly the same on the browser.
Hey, before we jump into that, Juuso,
Yep.
could you really briefly explain what that MCP is?
Yes. So Model Context Protocol, I guess, is what MCP stands for. It's a way for AI agents to gain like more context through an MCP server. So in this case, we are pulling information of the Figma files structure and feeding that into an AI agent. So it's not it like what it knows, what it has as a context is expanded to have more than just the like pure learning assets and the training data that it was trained with. That's my explanation. I don't know if that's what Mika, how you would describe the MCP server.
Yeah, sounds really good. So this way we are reducing the likelihood of LLM hallucinating us some weird stuff.
Yes, I think it's going to be much more accurate than you describing this UI in text. That what it is like. But, yeah. So now I'm again in the dev mode of Figma, and now the MCP server is a feature that is behind the dev mode. So the user of Figma needs access to the dev mode, which is behind a price tag in Figma. Here we can see that the MCP server is enabled. There's just one configuration option, that how do I wanna handle my images. In the Figma documentation, you can dig up more about the setup of the remote MCP server and the desktop server. They just state that it runs in this address. So that's what I'm now using in the project. The setup in VS Code looks like this, that I've added a MCP JSON file, and there is the definition that was in the Figma MCP documentation, this address. In addition, I've connected to Vaadin MCP server, which is pulling information from the Vaadin documentation. So I have these two running in the background. You can test the connection by selecting something in Figma, and now I can go into my AI agent and write one of the names of the tools of those MCP servers. So let's start with a hash, and I just happen to know that there is a tool called get design context.
How
And
did you know that?
I've read the Figma documentation for the MCP servers.
Gotcha. So documentation is your friend once again.
Yes. So this is a way of like testing that the connection works, and I'm just calling this tool and saying that don't make changes in the code, because sometimes it's quite eager that it will start implementing whatever I have selected in Figma. So you kind of need to tell it what you're expecting. And now it's calling the MCP server through this get design context tool, and let's see what it returns. Here on the right, you can see what we had selected. So there is this kind of purple thing It identified that it is a button with an add new text. It's able to fetch the tokens that are connected to it and so on. It can also take screenshots. So it fetched a screenshot of the selection I have in Figma. Now we can also test the connection to the Vaadin MCP. For example, pulling the Vaadin version. Let's see what that returns. It gives us that the latest stable version of the Vaadin is 24.9.6. Okay.
And this goes way, way beyond Claude 4's, Claude Sonnet 4 training data. So it has way much more accurate and recent data available.
Yes. In these examples, I didn't mention it, but I'm using the Claude Sonnet 4 model. Now there's newer models as well, but I don't know, just like has been working fine for me. Maybe I should move to another model. I haven't been extensively testing like different models, how good the output is in those, but I've been happy with the Claude models for now. Okay, so now we know that the connection works, and let's start putting this UI together. So now I'm selecting the same element in Figma as before. The selection needs to be always on one single frame. So I cannot do this where I'm selecting 3 things and then saying that, okay, pull this, but it needs to be one single thing. So that's why I wanted to group these together inside one frame. Just one technicality. So now we have a selection in Figma, and then we can go into our IDE. And I guess what could be a good practice is to, instead of jumping directly into implementation, is ask the AI agent to do a planning step before. So we can say that create to-dos based on, I want to give it guidelines. I can stop here and show what the prompt was. So this is something that I've put together by trial and error, as using AI in helping how do I prompt AI well. So it's a set of instructions. How should it use the MCP tools? So the first 2 steps is that it's using the Figma, get the design context from Figma, get metadata is also a Figma tool. It tries to gather all the components, all the layouts that are needed, and then it goes into the Vaadin documentation, searches the documentation for each of those components one by one, and reads through the documentation, and only after that it will start implementing. And this is kind of what I've now thrown into the mix, that I want a bit more control over how it should generate, how it should consume the Figma design. Without these instructions, it was originally taking a screenshot and then tried to do its best guess on what component is which, and just do a React UI using Tailwind and so on. So now this is trying to give it better guidelines on what are my expectations. These prompt files, we'll share links to those after the presentation if Mika doesn't already have those somewhere at hand. But basically, there's nothing stopping you from like customizing these to your own. This was Claude giving examples on how to use very strong language, because it's a LLM. It's interpreting the language in a natural way. So any workflow violations will lead into rejection. So it needs this like very strong wording. Okay, so recognizing the components, fetching the documentation for the components, then moving into implementing the user interface, and then personal preference. I don't want the AI to run any tests, don't take any screenshots, don't open the browser, skip all of that. I'm doing that myself. Then there's just a bunch of do and don't examples on what I'm expecting. I don't want inline styles. I want to use Lomo utilities, for example. Some guidelines on how to identify the components, what to use. If you come across a form, use a form layout, and so on. The main thing is the workflow that this is how I want to process my files. So create to-dos based on these provided guidelines. Your task is to implement a new view based on my Figma selection. And now we are doing a planning step. Let's see how that goes. Now, fingers crossed that something meaningful comes out of this. So yeah, now it's hopefully following the guidelines that I've given and creating to-dos based on these steps. That's kind of the downside of working with these AI tools, that it depends a lot on how you phrase your prompts, and also sometimes it feels like at one time it might do one thing, and the next time it does something else. But these kind of like prompt templates help a lot in directing and getting the same results every time. Okay, so here's the plan. It will gather the context, research the components, implement a view, apply some styling variables. It will do mock services. Now at this point, I could describe it like in more detail. That is this what I want? Is this not what I want? Looks good to me. So let's just go with this. It has also got a couple questions. Should I prioritize card components for layout sections or use vertical layouts with custom styling? So we could answer those. Vertical layout is fine. Data layer, do you need mock entities? Static content is fine. And then the navigation, standalone. We'll do for the demo. And then proceed with implementation. What I tend to usually do is kind of remind it that follow the provided guidelines or based on the active Figma selection. And just for the sake of it, let's keep this in context as well. Because how these tools work is that sometimes it kind of starts forgetting about these, so it doesn't obey to the rules, and there's kind of a hack in prompting that you keep reminding it about the same thing, so they get a higher priority in the working order.
And was it GitHub Copilot that you're using at the moment?
Yes, this is GitHub Copilot.
So with GitHub Copilot, you've got the instructions file also that you could use.
Yes, basically this is just a standard markup file that you could use with any AI tool, any LLM that can consume like prompts or context. So nothing actually specific to GitHub Copilot in that sense. So let's see. Okay, yeah, now it was still replying to my planning. I should have changed this into an agent. And now I'm truly wipe coding. I don't care to read about what it says. Just go on.
You only live once.
Yeah. So now it's starting to run the process. Okay, now it's asking me for every time to approve the different MCP tools, which is actually good. So let's see, it was fetching styling documentation for button, then getting the full documentation for the Vaadin button. I have all the component documentation needed. That seems like a bit too fast, but let's see. There isn't a lot. Do we still have the application running? And this is now supposed to be in the root add new. Okay, great. Yeah, so now it didn't take the context of what I have currently selected in Figma, but the one that I had previously selected. So let's try again. Maybe I should have read what it is about to do. So let's give it this. And so implement the new view based on my current Figma selection. Follow the provided guidelines. I was wondering why it's getting only the documentation for button, but now it seems to be better following what I intended to do. So again, getting the context. This is what it sees, but more importantly, it's using the design context, which is the internal markup of the Figma file. And there's a metadata which better describes the relation between different elements. So let's put these side by side again. What it now sees is a view header, tabs, KPIs, buttons, and a tree grid. And then it's fetching the documentation, hopefully this time for all of those components. Tree grid and so on. Now this is the step that might take a while.
It's always fun to wait and see what happens once it's done.
Yes. And now I should have probably paid better attention on to what the planning stage was and what it outputted. But previously, that was my challenge, that I was prompting the agent that, yeah, just implement whatever I have selected, and then you get the output, you wait for the output for the processing, then you get the output, then you realize that, okay, it was missing something or completely wrong. And I've actually found the planning step to be good in that sense, that I can first see what it is about to do, and then I'm just giving it permission to continue. As I read through the plan, I was skipping all the reading. Okay, let's see. It's writing a lot, but I guess in the end, I just want to go to the result and see what it looks. So now I'm restarting the project again. It created me project series, project view. So there is now a new route for projects. Yep, and this is what we got. The 3 grid here is kind of functional with the mock data source. These are using the Vaadin components as the elements. On purpose, the styling is still off. It was using some styling from here, but what I prefer to do is break it into 2 different tasks. So I have one prompt for simply taking the structure, implementing the UI, and then another prompt for doing the styling and fetching the variables and so on, and then fetching the styling documentation for the Vaadin components and proceeding with that.
Yeah, I think it makes lots of sense to try to make your tasks as small as possible.
Yes, and here you can also see some of the estimated size of this. That this is now 29,000 tokens, roughly. So the more context there is, the more tokens there's gonna be. Interestingly, now there's less. Maybe it was more accurate after actually calling those. But if you have like a highly complex UI, it starts to make sense to break it into smaller pieces so you can get more accurate results, or workflows that styling separately and implementing the UI separately. Now,
and just a quick reminder for everyone, when using agents and generally speaking LLM-driven development, it's highly recommended to use version control, just to make sure that it's easy to go back in time to previously working version, or if you hit something unwanted or unexpected, it makes your life so much more easier.
Yep, indeed. So now what I'm planning to do is that I'm taking this view implementation into context, and I wanna change it to have the form, the master detail layout, and a form also in the app. So refactor to be based on. So this is a name of a new Vaadin component. Then I'm describing what I want the functionality to be. So selecting an item in the 3 grid will open the details panel. Use the current Figma selection to create the contents for the details. So I'm referring to like master and details. Detail is the site that opens when you select a master item. And then what I'm typically doing is that reminding to follow the provided guidelines. And that's it. Now we're in the agent mode. We have the prompt guidelines in context and this view selection in Figma. So let's see what comes out of this. So here in the past, it was using a vertical layout, and now hopefully it is changing that into a master detail layout.
Drums rolling. Let us see.
So yeah, here's what it's getting from Figma. Again,
While we are waiting, can you comment, Juuso, on using this approach for like state transitions and stuff like that, not only on static screens?
I've used it at least for like creating like placeholders for screens when like implementing a navigation, for example, and the routes to those navigations, because that's sometimes quite time consuming creating empty views. So you can actually make sure that the routing configurations work as you would like to. So my own approach, I'm using the AI tools for things that I know personally how to make it manually. So I'm basically just augmenting or automating the writing part. I was trying to, for example, add UI tests into a project, but I'm a UX designer. I don't know anything about writing good tests, and I failed miserably because I had no capability of knowing, is this now done well, is it done poorly, and I just very quickly came into conclusion that no, this is not what I should be doing. So kind of I can use it in the things that I know, or at least like close to the things I know, so I can like validate that is the output what I want. I wouldn't maybe recommend doing something that is like totally off your own comfort zone of reviewing.
Oh, but that's what the LLMs are for, right?
It kind of yes and no. You can also like if you put time into it, you can learn those concepts, and AI can be highly helpful in explaining that. Okay, how do you write good tests? But yeah. Okay.
Hey, another question while we are waiting. So let's say I haven't been using Figma previously to design my app. However, I've just went and implemented an application. Can I use the MCP, the Figma MCP, to generate me a design file in Figma?
No, currently at least it's one directional. So everything goes from Figma into generating code, and not the other way around.
Gotcha.
Having that said, Figma does have AI functionalities of its own that you could, for example, take a screenshot of an application and then ask Figma to turn that into live assets or whatever. But the results vary. I haven't done a lot of that, but it's kind of like the same as taking a screenshot. Then there is no way of knowing that is this a div with a background color, is it a button, is it a what kind of element it is, and you're losing that context in when going through like a screenshot.
Yeah, but at least it works as a good starting point, perhaps.
Yes. There are some workflows that allow that, but if you're starting and picking up Figma, that might make sense. But there is no like sync between Figma and code in that sense. Okay, let's see what came out of this. I think it's introducing some new classes, so we need to restart this. Build failed. Yes. Okay, great. Flex grow cannot be resolved, not a field. This is what I was afraid of, that I get into debugging. Let's get all these flex grow example, I think the right value is 1 or something else. Yes. And now we have a master data layout. So selecting a row gives me a form. And there is some kind of layout with overflowing and so on. In here, I could do another round. It seems like it's not using a Vaadin form layout, but I could do another round and ask it to refactor the use. It's using vertical layouts, like nested vertical layouts, flex layouts. So I could ask it to use Vaadin form layout if I wanted, for example, to use that, or flex layouts or whatever. But now we have basically the same starting point or like the same level of implementation as with the Vaadin Copilot. Now, as the final thing, let's select the whole UI and try the styling of this as well. So now I'm bringing in another prompt, which is focusing on the styling. And then let's just say that implement the styles based on my Figma selection. And follow the provided guidelines. So this far, it hasn't looked exactly like the application. There's clearly some styling going on here, but it's fairly limited if we look into the styles. It has written some styling here, but it's mainly been replacing the. Okay, it has like created its own.
Yeah, it's not using the design tokens from Figma
class for that specific button. But we can take care of that if it doesn't refactor that. And now we could continue with the Vaadin Copilot as before. So if we wanted to fix the paddings and so on, adjust the spacings in this visual editor, you could also continue with the Vaadin Copilot, and they're not mutually exclusive in that sense.
Yeah, I mean that's the cool thing. I mean, I oftentimes when going crazy with wipe coding, I oftentimes notice that there are some small things I want to change in the UI, but it just feels so cumbersome to try to instruct agent to do those things on my behalf. So in that case, it's super easy to just take the Copilot and go into a running application and make those changes live in the UI.
Indeed. Let's see, now it's starting to. So here we can see that it was again following the process guide or the workflow outlined in here. That it's first getting the context from Figma, from the Figma file, then categorizing those, extracting component style from Figma, again getting something from there, and then fetching the Vaadin documentation for styling, and only then, after reading through the documentation, it's starting to write the styles. And this way the results should be better. One note on the styling part is that the Figma MCP only returns whatever we have selected. So it doesn't fetch the full design file. So for example, in this one, I have 2 different types of buttons. But in the design system, let's see if it's still working. In the design system, there's more color variations and so on. So it doesn't know of those. It only knows what we have currently selected. So sometimes what I've done is that I'm creating these kind of pages that collect the different elements and do a selection there. So it has more context on what we expect
Yeah, that's
the
handy.
overall styling to be. Let's see. Yada, yada, yada. Lot of styles being written. We just keep everything. And here it is. This looks a little bit weird, but
It's different.
but yeah, they at least like field styles are in place. They seem quite okay. If you look into what it actually did or how it did what it did, this was there before, so I think we could even remove all of these. I think these start to be something that it was adding in the previous one. So what it should do is it takes a little more variables and configures those values based on the Figma file, which is kind of the best way to start. You take whatever variables the team already has and configures those, and only after that you start styling individual fields. Now we have the styling for text field and date picker, but not number field or combo box. So then you could, of course, like continue this by hand or wipe code it to contain more components. But probably because my design didn't include a combo box, it just is outside of the scope of the tool.
So now that we've created the screen in Vaadin, is it responsive? Like, is the code responsive or the UI?
Based on, let's see, it has a split panel in between. Now I suspect that did it actually use the master detail layout in the end, but depends on like what components are being used.
And when I define those things in Figma, like I'm using the layouts in Figma, will it respect those or what'll happen?
That's an interesting question. To some extent, I wouldn't rely on it very well understanding like the Figma wrapping of fields, and it's also like sometimes difficult in Figma. You don't draw things as they are. It's not like a implementation specifications in that sense. So how I've defined responsiveness is probably that I take this design and then on the side draw the same UI in a mobile size. And
Yeah.
Figma is kind of like a bit more fixed on you need to present this somehow. So I have like a fixed size, for example, for this, but you can probably recognize that this is supposed to be like a 50% width of this row, but just for the convenience, I need to use like a fixed amount in here.
Yeah, and when designing screens for different resolutions and form factors, maybe you'll want to anyway use breakpoints and have like probably even very different kinds of design for smaller handheld devices.
Yeah. I think if you look into this, and it's not using a master detail layout, but instead a split layout, I think that is because the master detail layout is behind a feature flag. In the past, when I did the same exercise, it was able to identify that, fetch it from the documentation that, okay, it needs a feature flag, and it enabled the feature flag.
Yeah,
I
you need to enable it.
What happened here is that I noticed it started with the master detail layout, but then it reverted to something else because it didn't understand that the feature flag was missing.
The beauty of LLMs. You'll never know what you're going to get.
But kind of it's also a lot about prompting. If you know that the master detail layout is there, you should advise it that it's behind a feature flag, or just enable it yourself so it is available. So kind of like I'm taking half of the blame myself on not guiding it well enough.
Absolutely.
To be successful. I think that's everything I had in mind that I'd like to show. This is the end result that we got. I don't know, was it half an hour? How long did it take? I can maybe show a bit of the code that, at least to me as a UX designer, not a Java developer, it's reasonably clean, well structured. So it's not too bad in that sense. But as said, it's more of like a starting point, and probably will always need some level of tweaking and adjusting to make it perfect.
Cool, good stuff. So, Juuso, will you share all this good stuff, the prompts and whatnot, with the audience?
Yes. We can send a link into those.
We can tackle that offline and ensure that everyone gets a link to the repository, and we'll also send the recording after the session. But before I let everyone go, I just wanted to briefly mention we've been working on a pretty cool workshop, and it's basically something similar to today's agenda, but still quite different. So today we've been talking about how you can use AI and LLMs to create applications. And this workshop is all about how you can embed AI into your applications. So it's not about how to code with AI and LLMs, but it's all about how to create AI-powered features. And it's quite interestingly priced, so you might want to check it out. So pages.vaadin.com/AI-workshop, and I'll link to this in the email as well. So please check it out. Pretty interesting and good stuff for a one-day workshop to give you a flying start for implementing your AI-powered features. And yeah, with that, we would like to say thank you so much for your participation. We really appreciate your time and effort joining us. And if you have any questions, please ask. And the easiest way to reach us is via Vaadin forum, vaadin.com/forum, or whatever medium you prefer. Just shout out and let us know if you have any questions, or if you have any wishes on what kind of content we should provide, and what would be helpful to you.
Yeah, I'd be super interested in hearing like your use cases for design system and integrating with Figma. And is there something that we should offer on the Figma side, for example, that would be helpful for you? So
Absolutely,
that's always interesting to hear out.
Yep, we do this stuff for you, so let us know what you want us to produce. Cool stuff. Hey, thank you, Juuso. It was great stuff. Really good stuff. Enjoyed my time here. And with that, thank you so much for everyone, and till the next time. Bye. Take care.
Bye.